Hi guys, another subject that keeps cropping up. The program Outsiders on Sky News explains it in detail. It's about people not getting their jobs back because it's vindictivism. They didn't get the jab. There's no science behind it. It's nothing more than that. We have ambulance officers here who've been in the job for years, can't get back. Nurses in the same boat. And it's happening all around Australia. Now, I know for a fact that it's not happening in the UK and it's not happening in Ireland. It's forgotten. It's history. Have a look at this video. Help the Common Law Court to do something about it. We're just a few people. You are the ones who needs to push us, help us, support us, wherever way you can to get the majority of people behind us. And we have them. We just need a lot more help. Anyway, have a look at this video and support these people who are fighting back. And I thank the doctor up in Queensland and that nurse in Queensland who are taking it to the next stage. Anyway, thanks, guys. Watch this and support your local sheriff. Bye for now.
Fantastic, Rita. Thank you. More than 2 years after the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we all remember those days, the devastating effects of the lockdowns, which this show railed against at the time, and vaccine mandates, which only this show railed against at the time, are still being felt across the nation. The hurt and disarray caused by the imposition of such draconian, authoritarian dictates is, as I said at the time, and I've said many, many times since, absolutely demands a royal commission into the abuse of power during COVID. That process may have started this week in the Australian Federal Parliament, where many doctors, several doctors, got up and medical professionals and fronted a Senate committee there calling on the government to do just that, to hold a royal commission into COVID. Joining us are two of the health professionals who addressed that Senate inquiry this week. Ella Leach, who is the Secretary of the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland, and Dr. Julie Sladden, who's a medical practitioner with over 25 years of experience and co-director of Australians for Science and Freedom, and I'm delighted to say a regular columnist on The Spectator Australia. Thank you both, Ella and Julie, for joining us. Julie, let's kick off with you. Why do you think we need a royal commission into COVID?
Thanks, Ron, for having me here today. Look, as I stated in my Senate speech, there has been a catastrophic failure of medical ethics, human rights and free speech in this country. And with that, just a devastating effect on the trust, both in the health professions, in the government, and so many systemic responses that we saw. I think the only way we can begin to restore that trust is through a royal commission. Of course, there are a lot of other things that need to happen because we're still living through the fallout of what happened during the pandemic. You know, there are still healthcare workers who can't work due to the mandates. There are injured people from the injections who can't get the help they need. But if we don't even start to unpick what's happened and why at multiple levels, there is no way that we can rebuild back to what we want Australia to be again.
Ella, tell us your personal story and what happened to you.
Yes, so I would be coming up to my 6-year anniversary with Queensland Children's Hospital, but about 2 years ago they decided to kick me out along with thousands of other nurses across Queensland. They thought it was appropriate to draw this out for 2 years, and even though the mandate dropped in Queensland in September last year, 2023, they continued to fire hundreds of other nurses, and I received my termination letter just after New Year while I'm on maternity leave.
Nice, James.
And so tell us, so what exactly are these, mandates that are still occurring? Because we know that throughout the pandemic, the narrative around the vaccines and their official statements went from, these prevent and they stop transmission and stop you getting sick, to, well, they can be a bit of a help, kind of. It was essentially sort of the avenue where they went. What basically are they arguing is that there's a necessity for this sort of thing anymore?
Ella?
It is so obviously not about public safety anymore. It is vindictive. But even they were firing nurses who were working from home. So I don't know how they can justify that on the basis of public safety. But I believe it's a matter of money now. They know that all of the members in our union will not be paying fees to the other union. And that's a huge hit to the Labor Party, I assume, as well. But I can't imagine why they can think they can justify it. Now, they say that we're insubordinate and can't be trusted, but the nurses they've gotten rid of are the ones who were fearless. They advocated for themselves the way they advocate for their patients at work. They stood up for what they believed in.
Now, Julie, I want to ask you specifically about informed consent. You're a doctor with a long pedigree and history. Tell me what really disturbed you about COVID, why you believe we need this inquiry on the broader medical ethical issues, and that's what I think is absolutely crucial that people understand. Explain it to us.
Thanks, Ron. Look, I do think there is a fundamental issue here in that of informed consent. When they first announced that the mandates would be happening, I really thought to myself, well, how are they going to do that? Because informed consent, legally valid informed consent, and you can read this in the Australian Immunisation Handbook, can only exist in the absence of undue pressure, coercion and manipulation. Now, I argue that the entire Australian population was coerced, manipulated and subject to undue pressure when you can't move freely between states, you can't go and visit loved ones. Oh, you can't even earn a living in the profession that you've trained for all your life without subjecting yourself to an experimental injection which had a paucity of safety data. We all know that. Hadn't even been tested for transmission, and anyone under the age of 70 had a minuscule risk of suffering seriously from the virus, and that was well known in mid to late 2020. So informed consent can only happen when the risks of the treatment or procedure has been discussed with someone. The doctors did not know of the risks because A, they were unknown, or B, they were not informed of some of these risks, and a whole other Royal Commission could be given to that. But one of the most troubling things in amongst all that was that the administration exerted itself in that sacred space between the doctor and a patient by effectively silencing doctors. And I use that word cautiously but firmly because they sent out a position statement which said that any healthcare practitioner that spoke out against the vaccine rollout risked disciplinary action. And the way this manifested was that doctors were too scared to issue exemption certificates. They were too scared to submit reports of adverse reactions. They were too scared to advocate for their patients, and they were too scared to provide the healthcare that the Australian population needed. And there has been a huge breach of trust there. This is a safety issue. This is a huge safety issue now.
And Dr. Slatton, that has undermined trust in the medical profession in the eyes of many patients. That in itself is a massive issue. But what is the Albanese government saying in defence of not having a Royal Commission? They had a Royal Commission into robo-debt, and their COVID response impacted every single Australian. It adversely impacted millions of Australians. So what reason are they giving for declining to offer a Royal Commission? Are they just scared of some of those Labor premiers being compelled to give evidence?
Now that I would like to see. Julie.
Oh, look, I've read some of the reasons for it, and to be honest, they don't really wash that well with me. When you look at the responses that Australia made, by far the most devastating ones that we're suffering the hangover from now are the ones that were taken by individual states, locking up healthy people for weeks on end with no recourse. The mandates were done by the states, by the state health departments. So whatever reasons that have been given, they certainly will not even begin to unpick, and there won't be any teeth behind any of the evidence or the decisions that have been made. And as for the team that they've selected, well, let's just leave that there.
So Ella, are you bitter about the way you've been treated? I mean, you went into the health profession, to help people, paediatrics specialty. That's one of the greatest things that people can devote their life to. You've been trampled on simply for standing up to your own rights, as Julie has said, your free democratic rights of informed consent, and yet you've been trashed. How does that make you feel, Ella?
Bitter is not quite the right word. I mean, I am one of the lucky ones. I've had backup options and a supportive family. There are nurses I speak to who are living in their cars, or single mums of 4 kids who couldn't feed their family. So I am devastated for them. But we know that we're heading towards a retirement cliff. AHPRA, which is the registration board for Australia, their own data shows that we're expecting 6,000 nurses to retire in Queensland this year. They've known this since 2019, so it's more who's in charge of this operation? Why is our state government not coming out and reinstating these very much needed staff? And even our opposition leader, Dave Crisafulli, and our Shadow Health Minister, Ros Bates, are not coming out saying that this should not be happening. We've got an election this year. How can we even think that anything will change in October if there's a change of government? This is why we need a Royal Commission to make sure that this stops happening, because the response is current. It's not a thing of the past. There are still people locked out. It affects the people who are mandated. It affects the people who are still working, and Australians accessing our system. I had a nurse contact me saying that on her ward, one of the nurses she works with was given a patient but didn't realise this patient was in her patient load for an entire shift because of staffing issues. So this patient got no care for a whole day because of this. It's dangerous. It's not a personal thing. It doesn't matter what I feel. It's bigger than me. It's a absolute disaster.
Well, you can contact Ella Leach or Julie Sladen. Julie, just tell us quickly where people can get in touch with you.
Best place to find me is at Australians for Science and Freedom, and it's just julie@scienceandfreedom.org. Take a look at our website. There's a lot of academics and intellectuals there who have joined together to speak out against many of the things that we saw happen during the COVID.
And Ella, where can people contact you?
If you just navigate to the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland page, you can access me through the hotline there. We've got surveys showing people who want to return to work, so if you are listening and you are mandated out of work, please contact us. The ANMF are saying that there's hundreds missing, not thousands, and we need to show that that is completely untrue.
There you go. Ella Leach and Julie Sladen, 2 very brave women who spoke with other doctors and nurses as well this week, demanding a Royal Commission into the abuse of power and a Royal Commission into COVID. We must have that. Shame on all those politicians and medical bureaucrats. We know who you are. You are a disgrace, hiding behind the absolutely appalling situation you inflicted on Australia for 2 years. You will be caught one day, don't worry. I'm not going to stop until you are.